My name is Darcy Ingram. I was 32 years old when my father threw my 8-year-old daughter into a thunderstorm. 3 hours. That's how long Lily sat inside a flooded storm drain while rainwater ran around her bare feet and thunder shook the concrete above her head. 3 hours of believing nobody was coming back for her. And the worst part, she still thought she was the one who had done something wrong. My father pushed her out of the house because of a lie told by her 10-year-old cousin Tyler. A lie my parents accepted instantly because believing Tyler was easier than admitting the truth about the family they built around him. But what happened in that hospital room later that night, and what my father saw when he walked through that door, changed everything. Because while my parents were still trying to decide whether my daughter deserved forgiveness, I had already started building the case that would destroy their control over her forever. Before I tell you how an 8-year-old ended up hiding in a storm drain during a Tennessee thunderstorm, subscribe and comment where you're watching from. And if you've ever had that horrible gut feeling that someone you trusted with your child wasn't telling you the full truth, this story is for you. I joined the Army at 18 because it was the only thing my father couldn't control. Ray Ingram controlled everything else. The temperature inside the house, the volume of conversations, the way we dressed for church. The tone we used when answering questions. Even silence belonged to him, especially silence. My sister Jenna adapted to that environment perfectly. She married her high school boyfriend Derek Walsh at 21, had Tyler at 22. Bought a house 10 minutes from my parents. My father loved stability, loved predictability, loved children who stayed exactly where he expected them to. Then there was me, ROTC, Officer Candidate School, Fort Campbell. Every decision I made pulled me farther away from Tennessee and deeper into a life my father didn't understand. The farther I moved from home, the colder his voice became. By 24, I was a first lieutenant managing logistics operations for an Army brigade. By 25, I was pregnant and alone. The father, a civilian contractor named Marcus, disappeared when I was 6 months pregnant. No dramatic fight, no goodbye speech, just an empty apartment and a note on the kitchen counter that said, "I'm not ready." Funny thing about abandonment, the people who leave rarely understand how loud their silence becomes afterward. I raised Lily alone, base housing, military daycare, meal plans, deployment schedules, everything carefully balanced together with exhaustion and discipline. But Lily made hard things feel survivable. At night, she used to climb into my lap with crayons and ask, "Where are we going next, Mommy?" And I'd always answer, "Wherever the Army sends us, baby." Then she'd grin and say, "Adventure." God, I loved that kid. When Lily was 7, I received orders for a 9-month rotation in Kuwait. Every military parent knows the panic that comes with deployment paperwork, especially the family care plan. You choose who gets your child if the military sends you overseas. You sign legal documents, temporary guardianship forms, emergency authorizations, and then you pray you made the right decision. My parents volunteered before I even asked. My mother called me the morning after I told them about the deployment. "She's our granddaughter, Darcy. Of course we'll take her." At the time, it sounded reassuring. A stable home, good school district, family support. The alternative was leaving Lily with another officer's wife she barely knew, so I convinced myself the obvious choice was the safest one. I signed the paperwork officially designating Ray and Connie Ingram as Lily's temporary guardians during deployment. I even transferred $1,200 a month directly into their account for expenses. Food, school supplies, clothes, childcare. My father never mentioned the money once. Later, I discovered he never told Jenna about it either. Interesting detail. Because in my parents' house, Tyler already had everything. A permanent bedroom, baseball posters, a nightlight shaped like a rocket ship, a dresser full of clothes. When Lily arrived, she got the guest room. Actually, not even the guest room. A pull-out couch inside the guest room. No curtains, no decorations. No nightlight, just temporary space. I didn't know any of that while I was overseas. Lily never complained. And my mother kept telling me the same sentence every week. "She's adjusting just fine." That was the first lie. The night before deployment, I sat beside Lily on her bed in base housing while she packed crayons into her backpack. I pulled a small plastic card from my pocket, her military dependent ID, her photo on the front. my emergency contact information on the back. I clipped it carefully inside the front pocket of her backpack. "What's that for?" she asked. I smiled. "If you ever need help, you show someone this card and they'll call your mom." She touched the plastic quietly with one finger. "Even if you're in another country? Even then?" She looked down for a second, then very softly asked, "What if Grandpa gets mad again?" Again, that word should have stopped me cold. I remember setting down the water bottle I was packing and turning toward her slowly. "What do you mean again?" She shrugged. Tiny 8-year-old shrug. The kind children use when they don't have vocabulary for discomfort yet. "He just gets loud sometimes." "Loud how?" "Like when Tyler breaks stuff and Grandpa thinks I did it." My stomach tightened slightly, but I ignored the feeling. God. Parents hate admitting when instinct warns them about people they desperately want to trust. "Has Grandpa ever scared you?" Another shrug. Then, "Grandma says it's fine." There it was. The sentence that explained everything about my family dynamic in 4 words. It's fine. That was how my mother survived my father. Ignore, minimize, endure. And now Lily was learning the same survival strategy. I kissed her forehead that night and promised I'd call every week. I kept that promise. My parents didn't. The first month in Kuwait felt manageable, hot, exhausting, predictable, 12-hour logistics rotations, equipment tracking, convoy scheduling, the kind of structured chaos military life trains you to survive. Every Sunday morning at exactly 8 o'clock m Tennessee time, I video called Lily. At first she seemed okay, showing me drawings, talking about school, telling me about Tyler's baseball games, but slowly little things started changing. Small enough to ignore individually, big enough to haunt me later. She stopped smiling as much. Started asking strange questions. "Mommy, when do deployments end early? Or do you have to finish all 9 months?" One call in particular still keeps me awake sometimes. About 6 weeks into deployment, Lily appeared on camera wearing the same purple sweatshirt she'd worn during our previous call. Not unusual by itself. Kids repeat clothes constantly. But behind her, I noticed something odd. The guest room walls were bare. No drawings, no stuffed animals, no signs an 8-year-old actually lived there. Just the pull-out couch folded halfway against the wall behind her, like temporary furniture. "Where's your stuff?" I asked casually. She looked confused. "My stuff, your toys." "Oh," tiny pause. "Grandpa said Tyler needs more space." God, something cold moved through my chest immediately. "How often are you sleeping on the couch?" "Only sometimes." "Only sometimes." Interesting phrase, because children minimize discomfort instinctively when they're afraid of causing trouble. I kept my voice calm. "What does sometimes mean?" Lily glanced off camera quickly toward the doorway, then lowered her voice slightly. "When Tyler has friends over." My jaw tightened. Tyler had sleepovers. Lily lost her bed. Even then, part of me still rationalized it. Temporary adjustment, crowded house, family stress. That's the dangerous thing about emotional neglect. It rarely arrives looking monstrous at first. Usually it looks inconvenient. Excusable, minor, until suddenly it isn't. After the call ended, I sat alone inside the communications tent staring at the blank laptop screen while generators hummed outside in the desert heat. Then I called my mother. Connie answered immediately. "Oh honey, Lily's doing wonderful." Interesting, I hadn't even asked yet. She mentioned sleeping on the couch. Tiny silence. Then, "Well, Tyler has friends over constantly and you know boys that age need space." My grip tightened around the phone. "So my daughter gave up her room?" "It's not permanent. She didn't have a room to begin with." Another silence. God, people get quiet when they know you notice something they hoped you wouldn't. Connie lowered her voice gently. "Darcy, don't make this harder than it has to be." There it was again, different family, same sentence. Translation, accept discomfort quietly. I ended the call 3 minutes later feeling vaguely sick, but not sick enough. That's the part I regret most. I sensed something wrong early. I just didn't understand how wrong yet. 2 months later, Lily stopped mentioning Tyler during calls entirely. Not once. Considering children normally talk nonstop about cousins they live with that mattered. Then one Sunday she appeared on video with a bruise near her wrist. Small, yellowing, half hidden beneath her sleeve. My entire body went cold immediately. "What happened to your arm?" She pulled the sleeve down automatically. "Nothing." God, nothing is the most terrifying word a child can say sometimes. Lily, tiny silence, then very quietly, I fell. Not true, I knew instantly. Military training teaches you to read body language fast. Hesitation, eye movement, protective posture. Lily wouldn't look directly at the camera. Did someone grab you? Her eyes widened immediately. No, too fast, too scared. Then suddenly my father's voice sounded somewhere behind her off camera. Time's up. Lily flinched, actually flinched. I felt it physically in my chest. Wait, I snapped instantly. Ray, put her back on. My father appeared on screen instead, tall, gray-haired, expression already irritated. She needs dinner. I stared at him. What happened to her wrist? His face hardened immediately. She's clumsy. Not. I checked on it, not she's okay, just dismissal. She said she fell. Because she did. Then, you're overreacting from halfway across the world. Interesting accusation. Because manipulative people love calling concern irrational before questions get deeper. I want to talk to her again. She's fine. There was that word again. Fine, God, my father weaponized that word constantly. Fine meant stop asking questions. I'll call tomorrow. No, Ray answered immediately. She's already upset enough. Upset enough. My stomach dropped. What does that mean? But my father had already ended the call. The screen went black instantly. I sat frozen inside the communications trailer while desert wind rattled softly against the metal walls outside. Something was wrong, really wrong. And for the first time since deployment started, I genuinely wanted to get on a plane home immediately. That night, I barely slept. At 3:17 a.m. Kuwait time, I finally called Jenna. If anyone knew what was happening inside that house, it would be her. She answered groggily. Darcy, what's going on with Lily? Silence. Not confused silence. Careful silence. God, that was enough already. What happened to her wrist? Jenna exhaled slowly through the phone. Then quietly, Tyler said she shoved him. My pulse spiked instantly. What? He fell into the coffee table. And Dad grabbed Lily by the arm. Grabbed. Interesting word choice, not disciplined, not corrected. Grabbed. How hard? Another pause. I don't know. Lie, I could hear it immediately. Jenna. She cried. God, something inside me snapped tight. Why didn't anyone call me? Because Dad said you'd overreact. There it was again. Overreact. Funny how abusive people always define accountability as emotional instability. What actually happened? Jenna lowered her voice further. Tyler lied. I stopped breathing for a second. What? He admitted it later. Cold silence filled the line. And Dad still blamed Lily. No answer, which was answer enough. Then Jenna whispered something that made my blood run cold completely. Darcy, Lily's scared of him. I stared into the darkness of the sleeping barracks around me while generators hummed outside across the base. My daughter was 8 years old. 8. And she was trapped inside a house where fear had already become normal enough for adults to excuse it quietly. I requested emergency leave the next morning. The Army denied it, not enough evidence. No immediate physical danger documented. Mission requirements. Military regulations don't move on instincts. They move on proof, and at that point, I didn't have any yet. After the Army denied emergency leave, I started documenting everything. Every phone call, every bruise, every strange comment Lily made, date, time, exact wording. Military life teaches you something important very quickly. If you can't act immediately, you gather evidence. So that's what I did. I bought a small black notebook from the PX on base and carried it everywhere. October 12. Lily says Grandpa yelled because Tyler broke lamp. October 19. Bruise on wrist visible during video call. October 26. Lily asks if deployments can end early. At first it felt paranoid. By November it felt necessary. Then came the storm call. I was sitting inside a logistics office reviewing convoy schedules when my phone vibrated with an incoming FaceTime request from Lily. Not scheduled. That alone scared me immediately. When I answered, the screen shook violently. Darkness, heavy breathing, rain. For a second I couldn't understand what I was seeing. Then lightning flashed somewhere nearby, and I realized Lily was outside. Baby, she was crying so hard she could barely speak. Mommy, God. I still hear that voice sometimes, thin, terrified, trying desperately not to panic completely. Lily, where are you? Another flash of lightning illuminated concrete walls around her. A tunnel, no storm drain. Water rushed loudly nearby while thunder cracked overhead. She locked me out. Every muscle in my body went ice cold. Who locked you out? Aunt Jenna. Confusion hit instantly. What happened? Lily wiped at her face with shaking hands. Tyler said I stole his game. Thunder exploded somewhere above her. She flinched violently, and suddenly I noticed she wasn't wearing shoes. Bare feet pressed against wet concrete. My stomach dropped so hard it physically hurt. Where are Grandpa and Grandma? At church. Church, of course. My parents had left Jenna watching the kids while they attended Wednesday evening service. And somehow my daughter ended up hiding inside a flooded drainage tunnel during a thunderstorm. How long have you been there? Tiny pause, then, a while. Children don't measure danger correctly. A while could mean 10 minutes or hours. Lily, listen to me carefully. I forced my voice steady even though my hands were shaking so badly I almost dropped the phone. Tell me exactly where you are. I don't know. Look outside the tunnel. I can't. Why? Another crack of thunder. Then softly, there's water. God, the drain was flooding. I stood up so fast my chair slammed backward across the office floor. Nearby soldiers turned instantly toward me. Lily, I need you to stay on the phone with me. My phone's dying. Panic hit fully then, sharp, animal, violent. I opened another app immediately and called Jenna simultaneously. No answer, again, no answer, third call, finally. What? Her voice sounded irritated. I nearly screamed. Where is my daughter? Silence. Then she ran off. Ran off. Interesting wording for an 8-year-old locked outside during a thunderstorm. She's hiding in a storm drain. Dead silence. What? You left her outside? I told her to stay on the porch. Thunder roared through Lily's phone speaker again. I could hear water splashing now, moving faster. How long has she been gone? I don't know. Lie. People always know longer than they admit in emergencies. You didn't look for her? We thought she went to the neighbors. We, meaning everyone knew, everyone failed her. I switched back to Lily immediately. Baby, listen to me. Can you see any street signs? No. Any buildings? There's a playground. Good something. Do you hear cars? Yes. I grabbed a map from the office wall while adrenaline pounded through my chest hard enough to make my vision blur. Playground near storm drain near my parents' neighborhood. Think, then suddenly I knew. Lily, is there a blue slide? Tiny pause. Yes. McAllister Park, half a mile from my parents' subdivision. I called 911 from Kuwait while simultaneously screaming coordinates at emergency dispatchers in Tennessee. The operator kept asking me to slow down. I physically couldn't. My daughter is trapped in a storm drain. Soldiers had gathered around my desk by then. One of the sergeants quietly took the map from my hands and started marking possible drainage locations while I stayed on the phone. Lily, I'm scared. God, that sentence broke something inside me permanently. I know, baby. My feet hurt. The water, cold rainwater, concrete debris. How deep is the water? It's touching my legs now. No. Flash flood warnings were active across Tennessee that night. Storm drains fill fast, dangerously fast. I started shaking uncontrollably. Listen to me very carefully, I whispered. You stay where you are and keep talking to mommy, okay? Okay. Then softly, did I do something bad? God, I think my heart literally cracked, because even trapped alone in a flooding tunnel, my daughter still believed punishment made sense. No, I said immediately. You did nothing wrong. Thunder exploded again, then the line cut out. Battery dead. I screamed her name into silence. Nothing, just static. One of the soldiers grabbed my shoulder immediately. They'll find her. But honestly, in that moment, I wasn't sure they would. For 37 minutes, I sat inside that office staring at the emergency dispatcher line while rain hammered somewhere across an ocean on the other side of the world. 37 minutes of imagining water rising inside concrete darkness around my child. Then finally, the dispatcher returned. We found her. My knees gave out instantly, actually gave out. She's alive? Yes, thank God. I pressed both hands over my face while relief hit so violently it hurt. Then came the next sentence. She's hypothermic and severely distressed. EMS is transporting her now. Distressed, interesting clinical word. So much cleaner than terrified. I spent the next 14 hours trying to get home. Emergency military authorization, flight transfers, command approvals. Everything moved painfully slow while my daughter sat in a Tennessee hospital asking nurses whether her grandfather was angry with her. I learned that later. That detail still destroys me. By the time my plane landed in Nashville, I had barely slept 30 minutes total. My uniform wrinkled, eyes burning, heart pounding nonstop. The drive to St. Mary's Children's Hospital took another 45 minutes through freezing rain and early morning traffic. Every red light felt personal. I kept replaying the storm drain call in my head over and over. Did I do something bad? God. No child should sound that afraid of disappointing adults, especially not while trapped alone underground. When I finally reached the pediatric wing, a nurse stopped me outside room 214. "You're Lily's mother?" "Yes." The nurse's expression softened immediately. "She's been asking for you constantly." I think I stopped breathing for a second, then she added quietly, "She's very frightened of going back." Cold panic slid through my chest instantly. "What do you mean?" The nurse hesitated carefully. Professional hesitation. The kind medical staff use when they suspect abuse but haven't said it aloud yet. She becomes extremely distressed whenever family members are mentioned. Family members, plural, not just Jenna, everyone. God, I pushed open the hospital room door slowly, and there she was, tiny body beneath white blankets. Hospital bracelet around her wrist, wet curls tangled against the pillow, an IV taped to her small hand. My daughter looked impossibly little lying in that bed. Lily turned toward the door, and the second she saw me, she broke. Not crying, collapsing, full body sobbing so violent it scared me instantly. "Mommy!" I crossed the room so fast I nearly hit the bed rail. "It's okay," I whispered desperately. "I've got you." She wrapped herself around me with shaking arms like she thought I might disappear again if she let go. God. She felt freezing even under the blankets. "I'm sorry," she cried into my shoulder. "I'm sorry, no. I pulled back immediately. "You have nothing to apologize for." But Lily just kept shaking her head. "I made Grandpa mad." There it was, the center of everything, fear disguised as guilt. I held her face carefully between my hands. "What happened?" Tiny breaths, shaking shoulders. "Tyler lost his game." "Okay." He told Aunt Jenna I took it. My jaw tightened instantly, and she yelled at me. Of course she did. Then Grandpa called and Aunt Jenna told him I was lying. Lily's voice shrank even smaller. "He said I ruin everything." God. I closed my eyes for half a second because if I didn't, I was genuinely afraid I'd start screaming inside that hospital room. "What happened after that?" Lily stared down at the blanket. "Aunt Jenna told me to stay outside until Grandpa came home." "Outside during a thunderstorm warning." "How long? I don't know." "Did she lock the door?" Tiny nod. Lightning flashed faintly through the hospital window. And suddenly I imagined my daughter standing barefoot on my parents' porch while thunder shook the sky around her. Alone, waiting for adults who never came. "When it got scary," Lily whispered, "I ran to the tunnel because I thought the rain couldn't get me there." God. An 8-year-old made her own survival plan because no adult protected her. I kissed the top of her head while rage moved through me so intensely it almost felt calm. That's the strange thing about extreme anger. Eventually it becomes cold. Focused, dangerously clear. A pediatric doctor entered the room 20 minutes later, Dr. Ramirez. Mid-40s, careful voice, sharp eyes. He reviewed Lily's chart quietly before speaking. "She's physically stable now." Physically, interesting distinction. She experienced mild hypothermia and acute stress response symptoms. Acute stress response. Another clinical phrase, cleaner than terrified. She becomes highly anxious discussing the home environment. I stared at him. "Do you suspect abuse?" Dr. Ramirez paused carefully. Then, "I suspect emotional trauma severe enough that Child Protective Services has already been notified." CPS. The room suddenly felt silent. Good, because honestly, I was already planning to call them myself. Dr. Ramirez continued carefully. "Your daughter displays hypervigilance, guilt conditioning, and fear-based behavioral responses." God. Hearing someone describe Lily clinically somehow made everything worse. She asked 3 different nurses whether she was allowed to eat without permission. I felt physically sick. The doctor lowered his clipboard slightly. She also apologized repeatedly for causing problems. There it was again, conditioning. Children don't naturally believe their existence causes problems. Adults teach them that. Will CPS interview my parents? Yes. Good. Dr. Ramirez studied me for a moment. You're military, I nodded once. Then I'm going to be direct with you. His voice lowered slightly. If you send her back into that environment, this gets worse. Simple sentence, completely devastating, because deep down I already knew. That afternoon, CPS investigator Melissa Grant arrived at the hospital. Sharp navy blazer, legal pad, no-nonsense voice. She interviewed Lily privately first. I waited outside the room for 43 minutes staring at beige hallway walls while fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. Finally, Melissa stepped out. And honestly, her expression terrified me immediately, not because she looked uncertain. Because she looked angry. How bad is it? I asked quietly. Melissa exhaled slowly. Your daughter is terrified of disappointing your father, not grandfather, father. Interesting. Because authority figures become interchangeable when fear enters childhood early enough. She describes repeated yelling, isolation punishments, emotional intimidation, and favoritism toward the cousin. My jaw tightened harder with every word. Then Melissa added something that made my stomach drop completely. Darcy, your daughter genuinely believed nobody was coming back for her last night. God. I looked through the hospital window toward Lily curled beneath blankets holding the stuffed rabbit one of the nurses gave her. 8 years old and already learning abandonment. Melissa lowered her voice further. CPS will be recommending temporary protective restrictions immediately. Against my parents, against Jenna, against anyone inside that house. And for the first time since the storm drain call, I finally felt something besides fear. I felt dangerous. My father arrived at the hospital at 5:42 p.m. I remember the exact time because I was signing temporary custody protection paperwork with CPS when the elevator doors opened across the pediatric hallway. And suddenly there he was, Ray Ingram, tall, gray coat. Church shoes still wet from rain. My mother Connie followed several steps behind him looking pale and exhausted. The second Lily saw them through the hospital room doorway, she panicked. Not nervous, panicked. Her entire body locked instantly. Then she scrambled backward against the hospital bed so fast she nearly pulled out her IV. No, God, that scream still lives inside my head. Please don't make me go. The entire hallway froze. Nurses turned immediately. Melissa Grant stopped writing. Even my father looked shocked for half a second, but not shocked enough. Because people like Ray never expect fear to expose them publicly. Lily, Connie said softly, sweetheart. No, my daughter started crying so hard she could barely breathe. She'll lock me outside again. Silence crashed through the hallway instantly. Complete silence. And for the first time in my life, I watched my father lose control of a room. Melissa stepped between the doorway and my parents immediately. Sir, ma'am, stop right there. Ray's expression hardened automatically. That's my granddaughter. Melissa didn't move. She's in protective evaluation status. Interesting phrase, clinical, legal, cold. Exactly the kind of language powerful, controlling people hate most because they can't emotionally manipulate it. Connie looked toward me desperately. Darcy, this is ridiculous. Ridiculous. Funny word considering an 8-year-old almost drowned in a storm drain 12 hours earlier. You locked her outside, I said flatly. I did not, Connie snapped instantly. Interesting, she answered before Jenna was even mentioned. Guilt always moves fast. It was raining, I continued. She was barefoot. We thought she went next door. There it was again. Collective responsibility spread thin enough nobody feels individually guilty. Ray stepped forward slightly. This has gotten blown completely out of proportion. God. Of course he said that. Because emotionally abusive people almost always treat reactions as the real problem instead of the behavior causing them. Melissa crossed her arms calmly. An 8-year-old child was found hypothermic inside a flooded drainage tunnel during a thunderstorm warning. My father's jaw tightened immediately. She overreacted. Overreacted. Interesting choice of words for a child hiding from adults. Lily made a terrified sound behind me the second Ray raised his voice slightly. Tiny, instinctive, fear conditioned deeply enough her body reacted before her brain could. And suddenly everyone in that hallway noticed it. The nurses, Melissa, the doctor near the station, all of them. Ray noticed too. And for one split second, I think he realized exactly how bad this looked publicly. He lowered his tone immediately. "I never touched her." Interesting defense. Nobody accused him of physical violence yet, which means somewhere deep down he already understood what people were thinking. Melissa glanced toward her notes. Lily reports repeated screaming, intimidation, emotional punishment, and favoritism inside the home. "That's absurd," Ray snapped. "She's a child." God, that sentence, that exact sentence. I heard it my entire life anytime adults wanted to erase my feelings conveniently. She's a child. She's dramatic. She misunderstood. Funny how children are considered old enough to obey perfectly, but suddenly too immature to describe mistreatment accurately. "You called her a liar repeatedly," I said quietly. Ray looked directly at me. "She lied about Tyler." "No," I answered. "Tyler lied." Silence. My father's face changed instantly, not confusion, recognition. Because he already knew, Jenna told him afterward. Tyler admitted it later, and Ray still blamed Lily anyway. Melissa noticed the silence too. "Sir," she asked carefully, "were you aware Tyler admitted fabricating the accusation?" My father didn't answer immediately. That was enough. Connie stepped in quickly. "It was a misunderstanding." "No, a misunderstanding is confusing dates or forgetting groceries, not abandoning a terrified child outside during a thunderstorm because the adults preferred believing the boy." Melissa's expression hardened visibly. Then came the moment everything truly shifted. Lily whispered, "Mommy." I turned instantly. She sat curled tightly beneath the blankets, gripping the stuffed rabbit against her chest, eyes swollen from crying. "Are they taking me back?" God, the fear in her voice physically hurt. I walked straight to the bed and held her hand carefully. "No." Immediate relief flooded her face so fast it almost broke me, not excitement, safety. Like she'd been waiting hours for someone to finally say those exact words. "You promise?" "I promise." And right there in front of my parents, the nurses, CPS, everyone, Lily started sobbing again. Not scared sobbing this time, relieved sobbing. The kind children make when survival mode finally loosens slightly. Melissa closed her notebook slowly, then she looked directly at my parents. "I'm issuing an emergency no-contact recommendation pending investigation." Connie gasped softly. Ray's face darkened instantly. "You can't do that." Melissa's voice stayed perfectly calm. "I absolutely can, God." Watching someone speak to my father without fear felt surreal. Ray stepped toward me then. Actually toward me, voice low, dangerously controlled. "You're really doing this?" Interesting question. Because he still thought accountability was a choice, I stood up slowly. "You left my daughter unprotected. She's manipulating you?" That sentence snapped something inside me permanently. Manipulating. An 8-year-old nearly drowned, hiding from adults, and my father still framed her as the problem. "No," I said quietly. "You just finally lost control of the story." And honestly, that terrified him more than CPS ever could. The investigation lasted 6 weeks. 6 weeks of interviews, home evaluations, school reports, psychological assessments. And during all of it, my parents kept insisting they were the victims. Interesting how often abusive families confuse consequences with persecution. CPS interviewed everyone separately. Teachers, neighbors, church members, Jenna, Tyler. Even Tyler eventually admitted the truth, not dramatically. Children rarely confess dramatically. They just stop protecting lies once adults finally ask the right questions calmly enough. Melissa called me after his interview. He admitted Lily never touched the game. I closed my eyes slowly. Of course she didn't. Tyler broke it himself during a tantrum, then blamed Lily because blaming Lily already worked inside that house. That's the dangerous thing about favoritism. Children learn very quickly who adults are willing to sacrifice. Tyler wasn't evil. He was trained to expect protection, trained to avoid consequences, trained to believe Lily mattered less, just like Jenna had been trained. Just like I was, family patterns don't disappear, they replicate. During the investigation, Lily stayed with me inside temporary military housing near Fort Campbell while my deployment status remained under review. And honestly, that's when I truly realized how damaged she'd become. Not through bruises, through behavior. The first night home, I accidentally dropped a glass in the kitchen. The second it shattered, Lily froze, completely froze, tiny body stiff, eyes wide. shoulders locked, then immediately, "I'm sorry." God, that destroyed me, because she apologized automatically for accidents she didn't even cause. Another night, I found her sitting awake at 2 a.m. fully dressed on top of the blankets. "What are you doing, baby?" Tiny shrug. I didn't know if I was allowed to sleep yet. Aloud, "Jesus Christ, children should never think rest requires permission." I scheduled therapy immediately. Dr. Elaine Porter specialized in childhood trauma and military family adjustment. Warm office, soft lighting, bookshelves full of stuffed animals and sensory toys. Lily barely spoke during the first session, just sat curled tightly beside me clutching the stuffed rabbit from the hospital. But afterward, Dr. Porter asked to speak with me privately. Her expression stayed careful, professional, which honestly scared me more than open outrage. "Your daughter shows classic signs of chronic emotional intimidation." Chronic, meaning ongoing, normalized, embedded. "She's hyper-alert to adult mood changes," Dr. Porter continued. "She monitors tone constantly and apologizes preemptively to avoid conflict." I stared at her silently, because every sentence sounded horrifyingly familiar. Not just for Lily, for me. Dr. Porter studied me for a second longer, then softly asked, "Did you grow up in a highly controlling household too?" God. That question hit harder than anything else so far, because suddenly I wasn't just looking at my daughter's trauma anymore. I was looking backward at my own childhood through adult eyes for the first time. The silence in our house growing up. The fear when my father's truck pulled into the driveway. My mother whispering, "Don't upset him tonight." I thought that was normal for years. Dr. Porter lowered her voice gently. "Children raised around emotional volatility often learn survival behaviors that follow them into adulthood. Hyperindependence, perfectionism, fear of conflict, emotional suppression. Military structure suddenly made a lot more sense. Discipline felt safe because unpredictability didn't." God. I sat in my car afterward crying so hard I could barely breathe, not because therapy surprised me, because it confirmed things I spent years minimizing. Meanwhile, my parents launched their own strategy, church sympathy. That started almost immediately. Connie called relatives crying about how confused Lily had become after deployment stress. Ray told church friends CPS was overreacting to family discipline. Family discipline. Interesting phrase for emotional intimidation severe enough to trigger child trauma responses. Then came the court hearing. Temporary custody review, small county courtroom, fluorescent lights, cheap wood paneling. My parents sat across the aisle with Jenna while their attorney shuffled papers dramatically like presentation mattered more than facts. Lily stayed home with a military childcare coordinator. Thank God. No child should sit inside a courtroom listening to adults debate whether their fear was valid. Melissa testified first. Calm, precise, absolutely devastating. She described the storm drain incident, Lily's panic response, fear conditioning, behavioral indicators, Tyler's confession. My father's attorney tried minimizing everything immediately. Children exaggerate emotional experiences. Melissa didn't even blink. Trauma responses are measurable clinically. God, I loved that woman a little in that moment. Then Dr. Porter testified, and honestly, that was the first time I saw my parents truly uncomfortable publicly, because therapy language leaves very little room for manipulation. Lily demonstrates conditioned fear responses specifically associated with Mr. Ingram's authority. Not separation anxiety, not confusion, fear, specific, targeted, observable. Then Dr. Porter added the sentence that shattered the room completely. In my professional opinion, returning this child to that environment would reinforce long-term psychological harm. Silence. Absolute silence. My father looked furious, not guilty, furious, because people like Ray Ingram would rather be feared than exposed. Then came my testimony, the deployment, the phone calls, the bruise, the storm drain, the hospital. I stayed calm the entire time. Military training, emotion later. Facts first. Then my father's attorney asked the question designed to destroy my credibility. Lieutenant Ingram, isn't it true you abandoned your child overseas for military service? God. The courtroom went still instantly. Cheap shot, cruel shot, strategic shot, and honestly, it worked for one terrible second, because guilt hit immediately. Then I looked at the CPS reports in front of me, the hospital records, the therapist notes, the storm drain incident summary, and suddenly the guilt disappeared. No, I answered quietly. I trusted the wrong people. That landed harder than yelling ever could. Even the judge looked up from his paperwork. Then I added the truth my father spent my entire life trying to silence. Protecting children isn't abandonment. Failing them is. And for the first time since this nightmare started, Ray Ingram looked uncertain. The judge issued the ruling 3 days later. Full protective custody granted to me immediately. No unsupervised contact for Ray or Jenna. Mandatory family evaluation before any visitation review. My father lost his temper inside the courthouse hallway the second he heard. Actually lost it. "This is insane." His voice echoed across the entire corridor. People turned instantly. Lawyers, clerks, families waiting outside other courtrooms. And suddenly, Ray Ingram looked exactly like the man Lily had been terrified of all along. Not calm, not misunderstood. Loud, intimidating, explosive. Interesting how quickly abusive people expose themselves once control disappears. Connie grabbed his arm immediately. "Ray," too late. The judge's assistant stepped into the hallway, warning him to lower his voice while courthouse security watched carefully from nearby. And for the first time in my entire life, I didn't feel scared of my father. I felt finished with him. That difference changed everything. Ray pointed at me across the hallway. "You turned my own family against me." "No. The truth did that. You left an 8-year-old outside during a storm," I answered calmly. "She should have stayed on the porch." God, even now, even after court, even after CPS. Still blaming the child. Melissa Grant stood beside me holding a folder against her chest. And honestly, I'll always respect what she said next. "Sir, children don't hide in flooded drainage tunnels unless they're more afraid of adults than danger." Silence. Because there was no defense against that. Ray looked at Connie desperately for support, but my mother looked exhausted now, not defensive, tired, years of minimizing his behavior suddenly collapsing under public scrutiny all at once. Interesting thing about enablers, eventually reality becomes too large to smooth over quietly. That evening, I took Lily for pancakes. Nothing fancy. Tiny diner outside Fort Campbell with sticky syrup bottles and cracked vinyl booths. But Lily smiled more during that breakfast than she had in months. Real smiling, not careful smiling. At one point she spilled orange juice accidentally across the table, and immediately she froze. There it was again, that fear response. Waiting for yelling, punishment, humiliation, instead I grabbed napkins and laughed softly. "Well," I said, "the table probably wanted juice too." Lily stared at me, confused, then slowly, carefully she smiled. God. That tiny smile felt bigger than the courtroom victory. Because healing doesn't happen through judges. It happens through repetition. Safety repeated enough times that fear slowly stops expecting punishment. Over the next several months, Lily changed constantly. She started sleeping through the night again, started drawing colorful pictures instead of dark storm clouds, stopped apologizing every 5 minutes. Small things, massive things. One afternoon, Dr. Porter told me, "She's beginning to trust stability again." Trust stability, interesting phrase, because children raised around volatility treat peace like temporary luck. They wait for it to disappear. Sometimes Lily still startled when adults raised their voices unexpectedly in public. A man shouting inside Walmart once made her physically flinch against me automatically. But gradually, those moments became less frequent. Meanwhile, my family fractured completely. Jenna stopped speaking to me after court, not because she believed I was wrong, because accountability threatened the entire structure she built her life around. If Ray was abusive, then Jenna had spent years helping normalize it. That truth was too painful for her to face. Connie called occasionally, mostly crying, mostly saying versions of the same sentence, "You've destroyed this family." Interesting. Families built around silence always blame the person speaking, never the behavior forcing silence in the first place. Then one night in February, my father showed up at my apartment unexpectedly, rain falling softly outside. 9:14 p.m. Lily already asleep. I opened the door and honestly barely recognized him. Ray looked older suddenly, smaller somehow, not physically, emotionally. He stood there holding a paper grocery bag awkwardly in both hands. "What are you doing here?" Silence. Then, "I brought Lily her sketchbooks." Sketchbooks? God, such a small, ordinary thing. The grocery bag sagged slightly from art supplies inside. Colored pencils, markers, new notebooks. Interesting how guilt sometimes arrives disguised as practical gestures. "You can't just show up," I said quietly. "I know." We stood there for several seconds while rain tapped softly against the apartment walkway outside. Then finally, my father whispered something I never expected to hear in my lifetime. "She's afraid of me." Not defensive, not angry, just stunned, like he still couldn't fully comprehend it. I looked at him carefully. The man who spent decades confusing fear with respect. "Yes," I answered. Ray swallowed hard once. "I never hit you." God, that sentence. The universal defense of emotionally abusive parents everywhere. As if bruises are the only evidence damage exists. "You didn't have to." Silence again, heavy silence. Then I asked the question that had lived inside me for months. "Did you know Tyler lied before Lily got locked outside?" Ray looked away immediately. Answer enough, but then quietly, "Yes." Cold disappointment spread through my chest, not shock anymore, just grief. "Why?" His jaw tightened slightly. And finally, my father told the truth. "Because Tyler reminds me of me." There it was, the entire family dynamic explained in one horrifying sentence. Golden child protection, male favoritism, excused behavior, inherited entitlement. Ray exhaled shakily. "I thought she needed to toughen up." God, I almost laughed from disbelief. An 8-year-old little girl surviving military deployments without her mother, and he thought she was weak. "She needed safety," I answered. My father nodded once slowly, and for the first time ever, he looked ashamed. My father never became a completely different person after that night. That's important. People love stories where abusive parents suddenly transform after one emotional conversation. Real life usually doesn't work like that. Ray Ingram didn't become warm, he didn't turn gentle overnight. He didn't magically understand emotional trauma. But for the first time in his life, he stopped pretending fear and respect were the same thing. And honestly, that mattered. A month after the apartment visit, supervised visitation began through family services. 1 hour, neutral location, licensed observer present. The first visit took place inside a children's counseling center with bright walls and tiny plastic chairs. Lily held my hand so tightly walking inside that my fingers hurt. "You don't have to do anything you don't want to do," I whispered. She nodded silently. Then we entered the room. My father stood awkwardly near a table holding crayons and coloring books like someone trying to imitate what a safe adult looked like. God, I'll never forget his expression when Lily hesitated at the doorway instead of running toward him, because I think that was the exact moment he truly understood the damage. Children run toward safety instinctively. And my daughter didn't trust him anymore. Ray crouched slowly. "Hi, Lilybug." That nickname used to make her smile. Now she just looked at the floor. The supervisor guided them gently through activities while I waited outside the observation room staring through one-way glass. At one point, Lily accidentally knocked crayons onto the floor. The sound made her freeze instantly. There it was again, that fear, even months later. Ray noticed it too. And this time, instead of yelling, he quietly bent down and helped pick them up. Tiny moment, massive moment, because trauma heals through interruptions. The cycle breaks one reaction at a time. After the visit, Lily climbed into the car beside me, clutching the stuffed rabbit from the hospital. "How was it?" Tiny shrug. "Okay." Then after a pause, "Grandpa talked quieter today." God. Children notice effort long before adults do. Spring arrived slowly after that. Deployment cancellation finalized. Full custody restored permanently. Therapy continued weekly. And Lily started becoming a child again. Not a survivor pretending to be one. A child. She joined soccer, started sleeping with nightlights off, made friends at school. One afternoon, I found her sprawled across the living room floor drawing with markers while music played softly from my phone. No tension in her shoulders, no hyper-alert listening, no fear, just peace. I actually sat down in the hallway and cried quietly watching her, because healing looks ordinary from the outside. That's the beautiful part. The nightmares became less frequent too. At first, Lily woke up screaming whenever thunderstorms rolled through Tennessee. She hated rain, hated thunder, hated dark tunnels, hated locked doors. But slowly, through therapy and patience and safety, those fears loosened. Not disappeared, loosened. One night during a storm almost a year later, she climbed into bed beside me while thunder rattled the windows. I braced automatically for panic. Instead, she whispered, "You came back for me." God, that sentence nearly destroyed me emotionally, because underneath all the trauma, that was the thing she held onto most. Not the storm drain. Not the yelling, the rescue. I wrapped my arms around her tightly. Always. And I meant it with everything inside me. Jenna eventually reached out almost 2 years later. Divorce papers filed, Tyler struggling in school. Therapy recommended for him too. Interesting how untreated family patterns eventually reach everyone. We met for coffee quietly one afternoon. She cried almost immediately. I didn't know how bad Dad was. Not fully true. But not fully false either. People raised inside toxic systems normalize things gradually until harm feels ordinary. Jenna spent her entire life surviving my father by aligning with him instead of questioning him. That survival strategy cost her son too, because Tyler learned the exact lesson my father wanted boys to learn, that power protects you from accountability. Therapy eventually taught him differently, thank God. As for my mother, Connie changed the least. Even now, she still phrases things carefully, still minimizes, still softens sharp truths instinctively. But one evening while helping Lily bake cookies, she quietly admitted something that stayed with me. I used to think keeping the peace protected children. She stared down at the cookie dough silently. I didn't realize silence protects the loudest person in the room. God, that sentence took her 30 years to learn. My father never apologized perfectly. Honestly, he probably never will. But 3 years after the storm drain incident, Lily graduated elementary school. Small ceremony, folded chairs, terrible cafeteria cake. And when Lily walked across the stage holding her academic award, Ray cried. Not dramatic crying, quiet crying. The kind older men try hiding unsuccessfully. After the ceremony, Lily ran toward me smiling so hard her cheeks turned pink. Then she stopped suddenly, turned around, and ran back toward my father, not because fear disappeared completely. Because trust had started rebuilding slowly, one careful moment at a time. She hugged him first, and I swear my father looked more shocked by that hug than by the courtroom ruling years earlier. Funny. People who expect obedience rarely understand how powerful forgiveness actually is. Later that night, after Lily fell asleep clutching her award ribbon beside her bed, I stood alone on the apartment balcony listening to distant thunder somewhere across Tennessee. And I thought about that storm drain again. The darkness, the floodwater, the terrified little girl convinced nobody was coming back. Then I thought about the woman she was becoming now. Braver, safer, louder. Because the most important thing I learned through all of this wasn't about CPS, or courts, or trauma. It was this: children don't need perfect parents. They need adults willing to protect them even when protection becomes uncomfortable. Especially then. Before you go, subscribe and comment. Do you think some families confuse fear with respect? And remember, the moment a child becomes afraid to make mistakes around adults, something is already broken.